This is VSiN at the Track, the road to the Kentucky Derby. Now here's your hosts, Mike Somich and Aaron Halterman.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back in to another episode of VSiN at the Track, road to the Kentucky Derby. I'm Mike Somich. He is Aaron Halterman. And Aaron, stop me if you've heard it before. We got another loaded show for you today, including our first guest, Steve Byk, will be joining us next segment here. We'll be able to ask him what he is hearing on the backside over there at Churchill Downs. We'll talk about the Lexington, the final Kentucky Derby prep. We'll talk a little Torpedo Anna, who is running back faster than I think either of us expected. And it's draft season, Aaron. You know me. I love drafts. So we're doing a Superfecta long shot draft here in the final segment as well. How you doing here on this fine Friday?
Yeah, it really is a loaded show. You're right about that. I'm doing great. Thankful to be here for sure. And listen, we've got company. You know, we've got Steve Byk. Don't embarrass me today, Somich. You got to be on your best behavior, okay? Can you handle it?
I'll do my best. I'll try. I'll try not to reference any Inspector Gadget lines here for the entire show if I can pull it off. I'm not sure if I can. Got the daughter into Inspector Gadget. Really excited about it because now I get to enjoy one of those cartoons from my childhood. But that's neither here nor there. We got too much to talk about the Go-Go Gadget arm. So let's jump right into it here. The Lexington Stakes last week, our final prep. And man, was I disappointed by Bullard. He ran horribly. For trainer Mike McCarthy in that spot, we saw Gosker get the job done up front. Bracket Buster ends up running second at a big price. Last week, we said we thought we'd see 1, 2, maybe 3 horses in the Preakness from this. What are your opinions on these horses' Preakness chances after you saw them run last Saturday?
Well, I don't feel great about any of them, to be honest. But we'll talk about Gosker first, because I do think he ran a pretty solid race, right? He kind of just, we were worried about maybe they would get into a pace duel, him and Prater, and we would kind of see him bang heads. And that is not what happened. Gosker was very patient, just kind of took his time. He just pounced when the time was right and kind of ran away from him. So in that respect, he's a good horse. He's a developing horse. He's still got a ways to go, but I liked him just fine. But as far as, hey, can we win the Preakness off of that race? I'm just not sure about it. It was just an okay effort, right? I think we need more kind of building up before we try the bigger and better horses. With that being said, Prater was the horse that I kind of thought might kind of stamp himself as a Preakness, contender. And he just simply didn't do much running at all. And he did finish third. I realize that. But look, he kind of had no excuse. When they turned for home, it's like, well, if he's a decent horse, he'll at least kick on, and it's going to take a good horse to beat him. And that really wasn't the case either. So, yeah, listen, going into it, Somich, I really thought we would have 1 to 2 horses that we could take serious for the Preakness. And then coming out of it, it's like, I'm not sure if these horses are ready for that kind of competition just yet.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'll take any of them seriously. I still wouldn't be shocked if we have 1 or 2 of them in there. Prater is a horse from Chad Brown. He loves running these type of horses in the Preakness. I'm sure he was a little disappointed in the effort. We'll see if the plan is to run in the Preakness here in about 5 weeks. And then you've got Gosker, who I do think ends up going there. We'll see how much noise Gosker makes if he actually does end up in the field there. Now, we're going to talk about another Preakness prep, the Bathhouse Stakes, an interesting name there, over at Oaklawn a little bit later in the show. That'll be coming in segment 3, as well as a preview of the Elkhorn Stakes from Keeneland. But we got to talk about Torpedo Anna, who looked absolutely awesome in the Apple Blossom. She just continues to roll on. I'm starting to get those Zenyatta vibes. Not ready to put her at that level yet, but it feels like it's only a matter of time till Kenny McPeek decides to try the boys and possibly the Breeders' Cup Classic at the end of the year.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm not ready to call her Zenyatta or Rachel Alexandra or even like a Monomoy girl just yet. And so I am with you there. But look, this is the defending horse of the year who came back, for a 4-year-old season and went to Oaklawn Park. And they said, we're going to run the Azeri and we're going to run in the Apple Blossom. And she did both. Last weekend was the Apple Blossom, a big grade 1 race. And look, they were just very easy efforts that were easy wins. And if you are at that level where you can run kind of your B race because you just don't have to go any faster than that and win races like that, it says something. That's a big deal if you're able to do that. And so that's what she was able to do. Look, I think it's just like last year. She's going to have to raise her game a level when she faces the boys, and if she faces the boys again. And there was kind of speculation last year. I don't know. She may just be a little slow. And then when she faced the better competition, she was able to rise to the challenge, right? And so that's what she's going to have to do again. But, nice and easy wins. It's always good if you can run nice and easy and pick up wins, and that's what she's done. Going to have to raise her game, no doubt, but a very, very good start to her 4-year-old season.
Yeah, if you were wondering if the apple blossom took much out of her, it didn't. She was back on the track at Churchill Downs today for a workout this morning, so she's already back into training and targeting the La Troyenne Stakes on May 2nd, the undercard in the Kentucky Oaks. So that again tells you she's just rolling along here and did not take too much out of her to be able to win that apple blossom. She loves Saratoga. We saw her try the boys there last year. Do you think the Whitney is the first time that we see her make that step over against the boys?
Well, I think it absolutely would make sense because we know how much she loves Saratoga. Like I said, she just barely lost the Travers in a great effort, but she also won 2 other female stakes there at Saratoga and did it so well. So if it's the Whitney, I think that would be amazing. She would probably... And again, things in horse racing really change. This race is in August. But as of right now, when you look at it, she would probably face those same horses that she faced in the Travers, where she beat Sierra Leone and just barely lost to Fierceness. That may be kind of what she's looking at again, as those horses have stepped up to be 4-year-olds. And that's kind of the cream of the crop right now in the division. So we'll just kind of see how it plays out. I would love to see it. I think that's a really smart, spot to try. And it's a perfect distance for her. I think 1 1/8. That's the distance of the Whitney. I think that's perfect for Torpedo Anna. So I would say that would be your first real potential that she might actually face the boys again.
I'd love to see it. I like seeing, it's great for horse racing when you have these fillies take on the boys and you see them step up in competition. You get one of those superstars, which we really lack in horse racing a lot of times, is that superstar horse running multiple campaigns. So excited to see Torpedo Anna back on the track and what she's going to be able to do. Now, if you bet the Lexington Stakes, if you bet the Apple Blossom over the weekend, if you are betting any racetrack across the country, make sure you head over to our friends at firstbet.com. You can take your betting to the next level with First Bet, whether it's Santa Anita, Gulfstream, or any of the races on the road to Kentucky Derby. First Bet puts the action right at your fingertips. Head over to firstbet.com. That's the number 1 STBET.com and use promo code VSiN200 to score a 20% rebate on all your wagers for the first 60 days. Up to $200. That's firstbet.com, promo code VSiN200. And every single bet you make, win or lose, you're going to get a percentage of it back at the end of the day. Now, Aaron, let's talk Derby news. One of the beauties is that we are going to have news every single week as we do the show leading up to the Kentucky Derby. And this week definitely delivered from a news perspective. First off, River Thames out of the Kentucky Derby. I'm not shocked by this. I thought this was a horse that may matter to the pace a little bit, but in the long run wasn't going to be there right at the end. He surprised River Thames not going to go to Churchill.
No, I kind of speculated the same as you. I thought he would be out. This is a horse that I don't think wants to run 1 1/4 the distance of the Kentucky Derby. I think he wants to go more of a mile and a 16th. And I thought it was pretty evident when you watch him go 1 1/8 in the Bluegrass. He just looked tired. So no, I think that's a smart decision. I'm guessing we're going to get into a decision where we think may not be as smart, but River Thames, I think that is a smart decision with him.
Yeah, I mean, the next one, you alluded to it. Every year, it seems like someone gets Derby fever, and this year it feels like it's the ownership group of Owen Almighty, who was confirmed out of the Kentucky Derby by his trainer just 2 weeks ago and was confirmed in by ownership here this week with the quote that he's probably just a better horse on the lead. Why does that matter? Welcome to more pace here in the Kentucky Derby. Last time faced East Avenue in the Bluegrass, did not make the lead. And the ownership group, again, specifically referenced that race where they want Owen Almighty up front. Now it's not just East Avenue outside of the Baffert horses that possess early speed in this race. Now you're inserting Owen Almighty as well. We'll say, are you happy that this is an entry? I'm ecstatic because I like some of the closers, so I want the pace here. But what do you make of Owen Almighty getting back into this Derby field?
Well, if you watched the show last week, we both assumed he was out, and then I was sitting here saying, "Oh, it's skeptical, but this pace, it could go either way. We'll see." And then when you add him in, and then you add that caveat of what you just said, we're going to the front. The owners are basically saying it's like, I lean towards you a little bit more now. And it's funny how one horse can kind of make that difference, but it's just another. I absolutely need to go to the lead horse, and that is a little bit scary. Here's what I'll say. It's a classic battle between the trainer of Owen Almighty, who does not want to run in the Kentucky Derby, versus the owners who desperately want to run. The owners are not people that have like year after year Kentucky Derby contenders. And that's where it kind of plays in, right? It's like this may be a once in a lifetime thing for these people. I get that. And it would be hard to say no if I had a horse that qualified and then to say, no, we're not going to run. So classic trainer versus owner struggle going on right now. Somich's funny thing is it's been going on for like 2 months. The trainer's been in all the publications saying he's not going to run in the Derby. Yet here we are. So yeah, but the pace, it's going to heat up big time with this.
Yeah, trainer consistently calling Owen Almighty a one-turn horse, not a two-turn horse. And yet here we are, back-to-back races where we are going to be doing 2 turns, and not only going 2 turns, but stretching out in distance every single time that we try it. I think we officially have a candidate for the last price market. You get that every single year in the Kentucky Derby. What horse will finish last? I wouldn't be shocked if Owen Almighty gets wrapped up halfway through the backstretch here after setting a very, very hot tempo out front. Now, what does that mean for everyone trying to get into the Kentucky Derby? Right now, we have 4 horses that I think are interesting outside looking in. Built thought he was in, and then Owen Almighty took the spot. So Built now the first horse on the outside looking in, followed by Nyquist, who will run if he does make the gate. Render Judgment next up, and then Bieza, who we've talked about a lot on this show, right now needs 4 horses to drop out to get in. But they like this horse so much, they've already shipped him to Churchill. And Flavien Prat has confirmed he will ride Bieza if he's able to make the bulk of the field. What do you make of these 4? Do you think Render Judgment and Built are going to end up getting in? How many horses do we need out to get Bieza in this race?
Gosh, I'm just worried Bieza is not going to be the one that gets in. I do think a Built, Render Judgment, Nyquist, that could be the ones that actually do get in. But look, I think the most significant news, Bieza's still at 24. That's a problem. They already have a jockey confirmed for the 24 ranked horse. That tells me this is a very serious horse. And not only do they have a jockey, it's Flavien Prat. So that's a great thing for Bieza to get Prat already.
The Eclipse winning jockey will be aboard if he's there. Stick with us here. VSiN at the track. Steve Byk coming up on the other side.
Tuned in to VSiN at the Track, the road to the Kentucky Derby, right here on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Welcome back in here, VSiN at the Track, road to Kentucky Derby. I am Mike Somich. He is Aaron Halterman, and I'm going to speak for him and say we are both ecstatic here to have our first guest join the show. It is the one and only Steve Byk from Steve Byk at the Races. It's been 20 years running every single weekday from 9 a.m. to noon Eastern. You can catch him on Sirius XM channel 162 and 207, as well as online channel 999 and at stevebyk.com. That's BYK Byk.com. You find him on X at Steve_Byk. Steve, thank you very much for joining us here. How are you doing on this fine Friday?
Mike, I'm doing great on my way to Louisville and happy to join you.
It's always fun having you on the air. Been fortunate enough to be on the show a couple times at NHC, so nice to have you here on this show as well. And it's all about the Kentucky Derby here, just 2 weeks out from the big race. And every year, I always love the storylines that we get at the Kentucky Derby. And this year has no shortage, from the return of Bob Baffert to journalism and what he can do moving forward. What is the favorite storyline that you've had around this Kentucky Derby so far this year?
I've got probably the small horse story, probably the closest to that, because I was at Remington Park for last year's Springboard Mile. And when Lonnie Briley, very small time trainer, when he won the Springboard with Coal Battle, it really kind of set a terrific story in motion. And, modest price horse. A lot of people assumed that, he wouldn't go forward and wouldn't make an impact, on the actual Derby trail, even though the Springboard is a 10-point race. And all he's done is, win the Rebel and the Smarty Jones. I think some people are going to be dismissive of him coming out of the Arkansas Derby, but Lonnie's going to try to tighten the screws. To me, that's the sweetest story going into Derby. A career horseman who has got a once-in-a-lifetime horse.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. Got to be one of mine too, Steve. As a Remington Park guy myself, that is definitely cool to see. Now, on that same kind of note, your show's been on a hot streak with trainers coming on and giving out pretty good tips during the Derby Trail. So, kind of on that note, what are some things that you're hearing? Maybe a horse or two you're hearing about that's kind of flying under the radar right now.
Well, if you're gonna talk about a trainer that has created a crazy run on the show, it's Steve Asmussen with his lock of the week. And about 2 years ago, whenever I've got a chance to have Steve recap a stakes win, we'll look ahead to the horses he's got entered coming up. And given the size of his operation, he'll typically have 12 to 15 horses entered in the coming days. So at some point I said to Steve, how about a lock of the week? Who's most likely to win? And all Asmussen has done over the last 2 years is go 14 for 18. And it's the craziest thing. And he could very easily give 4 to 5 shots, but he typically tries to, pick a horse for everybody that is going to pay a decent number. But it absolutely it may have culminated when he picked his Tastic for the Louisiana Derby, who goes off and wins at 7-1, and that absolutely got everybody, kind of crazed, to have a $17 winner, given out by Steve. But in the meantime, Brad Cox did the same thing. Cox did it with Flood Zone, winning the Gotham. Brendan Walsh this week, yesterday with Clico at Keeneland. So it's gotten kind of infectious. But back to Asmussen, I know a lot of people are going to gravitate to Tistastic. I, as a price in the exotics, I think Publisher has got a real chance here to end up, third or fourth. I don't think he can win the Derby, but he's going to be a giant price. He's going to be running late. We know that there's going to be a fast pace in this Derby. One of the crazy storylines in the last 2 weeks, things have completely morphed. First, we had a group of horses that didn't look to offer much pace. Now suddenly we've got 5 or 6 horses that want to be on the lead. So there's going to be a hot pace again in Derby, and some of the late runners like Sandman, they're going to get tons of attention. Today, Nick Tamaro suggested that Sandman might be second choice behind Journalism, but I'm going to absolutely work Publisher into my plays underneath, third, fourth.
We've got Steve Byk here on the Progressive guest line. And Steve, that is music to Aaron's ears. I know he is a big Publisher fan, so he's happy to hear that. I love the fact that trainers, I always talk, there's trainer speak. You don't know if you're getting the full story from them. I love that Steve Asmussen out there trying to really motivate these guys to give out some winners on your show after his run. So that's great news as well. Now, the international horses have been a big buzz story the last few years. We saw Forever Young run second last year. Luxor Cafe is one of those horses that's starting to get some buzz around him, sitting there in the futures market, the fixed odds market, in that 10-1, 11-1 range. What do you expect from the international shippers this year in the Kentucky Derby?
This is always a difficult equation. It's become a difficult equation. And, you look at Luxor Cafe, Cafe Pharaoh's brother. I think there's reason to expect that he's a serious contender. This is a tough one for me, guys, because the dam of this horse, Mary's Follies, a product of the late Paul Pompa, who I was very close to, and we lost way too young. A lot of you will know Paul's name as the principal owner of Big Brown, and this mare has been so productive. It'd be unbelievable if Paul could have an influence on another Derby, via Luxor Cafe. But for the longest time, my approach with these horses has been the first one that shows up in Kentucky and wins a Derby, that one is going to beat me. I'll kind of have to wait until that happens. I respect this horse. The Magic Man, Joe Marrero, the tremendous international jock that, was basically dominating in Hong Kong for years. Marrero's going to ride. I respect him. I've got to guess that Admire Daytona is okay coming out of the UAE Derby, but that's another avenue that you have to be dismissive of. So I understand, and I know that there's so many people that, that just are in awe of what the Japanese have accomplished in recent years with all of their globe-trotting success. You're going to have to show me, and I guess then after that I'll change my approach. But I respect Luxor Cafe. I don't see him on the top of any of my tickets.
All right, so we've got it all kind of laid out here. Let's go to the quick question here. Who do you like? Who's winning this Derby? Before a pre-draw, we won't hold you to it, but who do you think as of right now, who's winning this thing?
Well, I think it's hard. I think it's hard to argue against journalism. The Derby, the Derby favorite storyline has kind of, whipsawed around in recent years. We went the longest time without a Derby favorite. Then all of a sudden we had a tremendous run of Derby favorites winning. I respect journalism. I was out at Santa Anita for the Santa Anita Derby 2 weeks ago. There's nothing about him that you would, aggressively fight against as a horse that can win this race. The only thing, of course, that makes you hesitate, the price, right? I mean, you just don't want the price.
It's always tough to back a favorite in the Derby, Steve. Thank you very much for joining us here. Really appreciate it, Steve, and safe travels there to Churchill Downs.
I appreciate it, Michael. Hope to get you guys on Derby week.
Sounds great, Steve. Love to do it there. That was Steve Byk, the man, the myth, the legend. 20 years of Steve Byk at the races, celebrating this year in 2020. You can find him on X over at Steve_Byk. You can find his show every weekday from 9 a.m. to noon Eastern on SiriusXM channel 162, channel 207, and online channel 999, as well as at SteveByk.com. Super happy to have Steve on here. You mentioned it. Gets a ton of inside information. He's talking to trainers, jockeys, owners every single day over on his show. Now stick with us here at VSiN at the track, Road to Kentucky Derby. We'll be right back prepping two of the races from this upcoming weekend.
Tuned in to VSiN at the Track, the road to the Kentucky Derby, right here on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Welcome back in here, VSiN at the Track, road to Kentucky Derby. I'm Mike Somich. He's Aaron Halterman, and we've got a couple races to preview from this upcoming weekend here. Thank you to everybody who's joining us over at VSiN Live on the YouTube channel. You can check out the replay, channel 158 on SiriusXM Saturday morning. Also be on VSiN proper over on YouTube.com and all of the terrestrial radio stations that cover us around the country. Appreciate everybody for joining us, however you may be doing so. And Aaron, we talked about a Preakness prep last weekend. Let's head into another one here this weekend. We've got the Bathhouse Row Stakes over at Oaklawn Park. It's going to be the sixth race on the Oaklawn card, mile and an eighth on the dirt. Your favorites on the outside, Instant Replay, 4-5, on the morning line for Brad Cox. Are you going to try and beat Instant Replay, or are we trying to cold exactly here? What's your focus?
Yeah, I'm not going to try to beat Instant Replay in this spot. I think he's pretty well meant for this one today. So when you kind of look at what Instant Replay has been able to do so far in his career, he was kind of a little bit of an inconsistent horse, slow starter, if you will. But his last 2 races have been pretty darn sharp. Won an allowance race down at Fairgrounds and looked so good. They tried the Louisiana Derby. And I think with just a little more seasoning, a little more stakes competition, I think this horse would have been able to finish up even better than he did. But that being said, he was third, beaten 2 1/4. So like he was right there with those horses. So I thought it was a really good race. I think he's starting to kind of put together a little bit of a resume that goes, you know what? He maybe was a little bit slow to learn. He was a little bit inconsistent, but he's starting to get consistency. He's starting to start to see him blossom. So here we are again. We're another week where I'm like, yeah, I think this could be a Preakness contender. Last week, it didn't really work out that way. This week, I'm kind of optimistic again. I think Instant Replay, the 7 horse, is going to be really tough. So I'm taking the chalk here. I do like Instant Replay quite a bit in this spot.
We'll have to tune into Steve Byk at the races, see if Brad Cox mentions this horse and gives him out as a winner, although price is a little bit shorter. Now, when I look at Instant Replay, what jumps off the page to me is those last 2 races, which are very good. However, 2 back, 6-horse field, half-mile point, 6th place, 8 lengths back, dead last. The Louisiana Derby, 10-horse field, half-mile point, 10th place, 12 lengths back, dead last. You're going to need pace here in this spot. I do think there's enough pace that can materialize for Instant Replay to be able to close ground. You've got the 4 Tis Secure that I think is going to be out front. Him on the rail, very, very fast as well. So you've got some pace in here to chase. That, to me, is the biggest question from Instant Replay. I do like Instant Replay in this spot nonetheless. I do think he gets the pace to chase. So if I'm betting this race, Aaron, I'm looking for a cold exacta. Do you like a price in second that we could put underneath Instant Replay?
Unfortunately, I don't really like a price in this race. You mentioned the number 4 Tis Secure. I kind of think that's the most likely horse to finish second. So unfortunately, no, I don't. You're just going to have to play a straight 7-4 if you, or whoever you like in second. But if you like the 7 on top, you're going to have to probably get creative. You're not going to get that price to win. I'm going to play a straight 7-4. Tis Secure, the oddest move I've ever made. I want to ask you about this because Tis Secure, a Bob Baffert trainee who broke his maiden on debut and looked pretty sharp doing it. He was on the dirt. He went to the turf, something that I've just never seen a Bob Baffert runner do, go from dirt to turf after a victory. Somich was so weird. So, but I like him back on the dirt today. I think he ran very well on the dirt, not so good on the turf. Just, have you ever seen Bob Baffert do that with a horse? I'm really curious to know.
It feels like Baffert just wanted to get a 2-turn race into this horse so that you could stretch out to a longer distance. I mean, Maximum Security out of a Tisnow mare, not exactly great turf pedigree either. So it's kind of head scratcher with a decision to head over to turf there. Now, the horse did close in the first effort, which I thought was interesting. A lot of times these Bob Baffert horses you see just blaze out front and take field's gate to wire. Beat Voldemort that day, who ran second, as well as King Stephen, who ran third. They both came back to win their races. So I agree with you. I think Tis Secure is well met in this spot. I do think him on the rail is a little bit interesting here. 4-1 for Ron Marquette. You got Luis Saez aboard. This one's going to go right to the front. If you don't get the pressure, and specifically I think Caldera, probably the most likely horse to pressure him, he could get loose and become very difficult in this spot. So if I'm playing an exacta, I like taking the speed with the closer if I do like the closer to be able to overcome him. So I'll take a 1-7 exact or 7-1 exacta colt here in this spot. We should mention Caldera 15-1, my racehorse horse here. So going to get a ton of play just from the ownership group. Any interest in Caldera in this spot?
He's kind of a prove it race to me a little bit. I mean, he's just been all over the place, hasn't he? He's been good at times, and at times he really hasn't been good. Weird story, or not a weird story, but kind of a cool story, I should say. I actually got to meet Caldera about 3 weeks ago. We were down for the Arkansas Derby, and we got to go to the D. Wayne Lucas barn. We met a lot of his horses. This Caldera is a crazy horse. Like, he's very immature. Like, we popped our head in his stall and he just ran right at us and tried to bite us immediately. He was all over the place. So he's kind of a cool horse. He's a cool looking horse, but he's a little bit goofy. But anyway, it's a prove it race for me. I want to see him run one before I get excited about him again.
Now, Better Boss in the chat asking, what does it mean for a horse to break their maiden? Every horse gets to face horses who have never won before. Those are in maiden races, maiden special weight or maiden claimer. Once you win a maiden race, you are no longer eligible, or any race, you are no longer eligible to run in the maiden company. That means that it gets much more difficult because everybody who has run in those races or after the maiden company are all winners. So they all know how to win a horse race, making it quite a bit difficult. Now, if you want to bet the Bathhouse Row Stakes race or the Elkhorn, which we'll talk about in a second, head over to firstbet.com. First Bet lets you wager on hundreds of races every single day from top tracks across the U.S. and around the world. You can get video right inside the app. Sign up at firstbet.com. That's the number one, STBET.com. Use the promo code VSiN200 for a 20% rebate on your first 60 days. So head over to firstbet.com today. Use VSiN code VSiN200 to be able to get that rebate. Let's head out to Keeneland and the Elkhorn Stakes. This is a full field. We got 13 horses signed up. 12 will end up heading postward, assuming we don't get too many scratches. And your favorite is number 6, Limited Liability, at 8-5 on the morning line. And spoiler alert, any race with limited liability is a great race to bet because this horse doesn't like to win very much, Aaron.
You're right. And so we had a favorite that we liked in the Bathhouse Row. We got a favorite we don't like in Limited Liability. So, yeah, look, we're going to take shots against him. I know we are. I went with the number 9, Missed the Cut, on top for me. This is a horse that has a pretty good background right here last year in the Elkhorn. Finished second behind a horse named Silver Knot. Silver Knot was a very good horse. There's not anything like that in this race, as you could tell with Limited Liability being a big favorite. So Missed the Cut for me is a horse that I think second off the layoff. Last time out was his first race in over 200 days. Didn't run all that well, but he's going to run better here, second off the layoff, and he's going to run better stretching out to this distance of 1.5 miles. This is what he wants to do. So I'm going to take a shot. Hopefully we get 6-1. I think that'd be a really good price on Missed the Cut, but I think the 9 will be sharp and ready for this race.
You're going with one, Cherie DeVoe. I will go with the other one. Let's head to the rail here, and the number 1 horse, Rebel Red, 8-1 on the morning line. Cherie DeVoe signs up her top jockey, Jose Ortiz, to take them out. The two of them, 25% when teaming up over the last 2 years. And Rebel Red is a horse that has a win over this track, going 1 1/8 miles. That was 3 races back, coming from way off the pace. The next race out faced Limited Liability, ended up losing by a nose in that spot at Aqueduct when on the front end. So you know this horse is versatile, can be up close, can be further back, was last seen in a grade 2 race out at Fairgrounds. That was a very wonky race. I'd rather be Blessed, who was in this field, won that race at 60-1, 80-1, some crazy numbers, 20-1 on the morning line here. Then now we get second off the layoff for this 5-year-old, who I think takes a step forward. I like the 1.5 mile distance for Rebel Red. I think you're going to see Rebel Red close to the pace, which is important here over this Keeneland track. And the price to me at 8-1, very, very nice. Aaron, any long shots that you're interested here in the 9th at Keeneland?
Yeah, I do think there is one long shot, 20-1 on the morning line. And I think this is one that's very interesting. The number 10 horse, Starting Over. And this horse is kind of starting over himself, right? He hadn't been sitting over 200 days. He changes over to Brittany Russell, who's a very good trainer with horses in her barn for the first race of their start with Brittany Russell. Now, the problem is, this is a tough race. This horse hasn't been seen in a while. Maybe, he needs a race before we see him at his best. But you kind of look back through the past performances. When this horse runs 1.5 miles on the turf, he's pretty good. 3 races back in the W.L. McKnight at Gulfstream Park, this horse was second to a really nice horse down at Gulfstream that day. Now, that's a long time ago, and we got to get back to that. But at 20-1, I think the 10 Starting Over makes a lot of sense.
Make sure you're watching live here at VSiN Live, because it's going to be an interesting conversation during the break after Aaron talks about the 10. We'll talk about that one here at the break. I think the 12 Balnikov, interesting here at an 8-1 price as well. Another horse that really likes the 1.5 mile distance, 1-for-1 over this Keeneland turf course as well. So Balnikov 8-1, a little bit interesting. But on top, give me the 1 Rebel Red. Give Aaron the number 9 Missed the Cut. Both of us playing against the favorite, the 6 horse Limited Liability. Now, Aaron, you got everyone out there. You got to stick with us here. We're going to have some fun after this break. We are going to do a long shot Superfecta draft, the holy grail of horse racing, hitting that Superfecta, the dollar Superfecta in the Derby, which has averaged payout over $10,000 the last 6 years. I think this year could be another one. And coming up after the break here, we will talk about our favorite long shots for that Superfecta Derby bet. Stick with us here. VSiN at the track, road to Kentucky Derby.
tuned in to VSiN at the Track, the road to the Kentucky Derby, right here on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Welcome back in VSiN at the Track. I'm Mike Somich. He's Aaron Halterman, and we have got one more segment and a whole lot to do. So let's get right to it, Aaron. Every week we give out our top fives in the Kentucky Derby. And this week, not a lot has changed. In fact, nothing has changed in my top five. So I'll rip through it here pretty quick so we can get to our Superfecta draft and a big announcement for Kentucky Derby Saturday as well. I'm going to keep Aiza there in the fifth spot and just be praying that we get the defections to get this horse in. Already shipping out to Kentucky. Pratt's already confirmed to ride. Big time threat here if this horse able to get into the Kentucky Derby. Number 4 for me, Todd Pletcher trained, Mike Rapoli owned, Grande ran second in the Wood last time. I thought this was a very good learning experience. First time against Stakes Company, ran very well even with an outside trip there. Number 3, Tappan Street, winner of your Florida Derby. Really got a phenomenal trip in that spot, but I thought the horse did everything he could to parlay it into a victory. I'm still in on Sovereignty. Hasn't changed at my number 2 spot since we started doing this show. Horse looked awesome down 2 back at Gulfstream Park. Not quite able to get to Pond Street last time, but love the turn of foot here. And number 1 for me, and really number 1 for hopefully most people who are doing these lists. Journalism is currently your best horse in the class. Aaron, who do you got as your top 5?
Yeah, we're similar on top, a little bit different after that, though. So number 5 for me is Tistastic. I think people are kind of forgetting about this horse. This is a horse that was very, very good in the Louisiana Derbies. Another one that should benefit from what looks like it's going to be a hot pace now if Owen Almighty does run. So Tistastic 5 for me. Sovereignty 4. I'm a little bit more disappointed in that Florida Derby effort than you are, but I do kind of look back and say, look, if there is pace in the Derby, we know this horse will come running. He's bred to go the distance of a mile and a quarter. Number 3, Rodriguez. That's one that could change because last week when I was doing this, it looked like the pace may not materialize. Now it does look like it might be hot. So I'll just kind of monitor that. I'll kind of see the breaking news there. So Rodriguez 3 for me. Sandman number 2. You hate him. I love him. But look, he closed up nicely to win the Arkansas Derby very impressively. And then, like you said, number 1 is Journalism, the horse that we're all been on for a long time now. He's just done nothing for us to kind of get off of him. Very impressive in the Santa Anita Derby. So Journalism number 1 once again for me.
Yeah, it's tough to not have Journalism there. And Sandman, you have sitting number 2. Steve Byk earlier on the show mentioned Sandman may be the second betting choice. I fully agree that Sandman going to be your second betting choice here in the Derby. Going to be a lot of public money because of the celebrity TikTok and YouTuber Griffin Johnson that is attached to that horse. Has already done multiple interviews. I would expect that you're going to see money come in on Sandman on race day. And now, Aaron, we love the Superfecta in the Kentucky Derby, right? And one of the beauties of it is you always get a 20-1, a 30-1, an 80-1 in Instilled Regard somewhere inside that Superfecta, and the dollar denomination really juices up the payouts. We've seen consistently $10,000+ payouts on this bet as well, even if the favorite is able to win the race. So this is one that I love to attack every single year. And, you know, the NFL draft's coming up, and I also just simply love drafts. So I figured, why not do a long shot draft here? So I flipped a coin in the last break. Bad news for you. I get the number 1 pick here in the draft. We'll do a snake draft. Horses have to be 15-1 or better to be able to draft them. What do you say? You ready to go?
Let's do it. I'm excited.
All right. For me, number 1 pick. Happy to have it. Happy to bring Grande onto the team here. Number 4 on my top 5 list, currently 15-1 over at Caesars. You can get him as high as 25-1 in some places. I'm not sure Grande can win this race, but if you go back and you watch the Wood and what he was able to do in the first time against Stakes Company and against Rodriguez, who got a fairly easy lead and got very comfortable up front, I was impressed that even with a wide trip on the first turn, a wide trip on the second turn, and having to catch kickback, he was able to be closing the gap on Grande as they got close to the finish line. Should have no problem with the 1.25 mile distance. And this is the Rapoli Pletcher horse that I actually think has a shot at winning it if we're able to get the right trip. That's a big if for Grande, especially with this step up. But I really like Grande in my Superfecta bets here, 15-1 right now on the futures odds market. Sorry, Aaron took the best horse off the board, but you do get to pick 2 next. Who you taking?
Well, look, I think you picked a good horse, but I don't think you picked the best horse on the board because the best horse on the board is Tistastic. That's who I'm taking at number 2. Listen, this is my boy, Steve Asmussen. Look, we had Steve Byk on the show, Somich. He tried to tell you about these Asmussen horses. You didn't listen. You took a Pletcher. But anyway, with Tistastic, look, I think he's kind of the forgotten horse. He won the Louisiana Derby, but he won it, he was the first week of those preps. And we had so much other stuff and so much recency bias. People forget Tistastic was pretty darn good in that race. Oddly enough, horses that run well on the turf usually run well on the Churchill Downs dirt. Guess what? Tistastic is a good horse on the turf. He's 2 for 2, believe it or not. Hard to believe he hasn't been back on that surface since. But anyway, at 20-1 right now, I think he makes a ton of sense. I think he's going to close up nicely. So give me Tistastic at number 2.
All right. Okay, pick. I don't hate Tistastic. You know that this horse can close into a pace, and it does seem like we're going to get quite of a pace. You've taken one Asmussen, not a surprise because you're Aaron Halterman. We know your love and affinity for Steve Asmussen. You get the number 3 pick. Who are you taking here?
Well, what's better than one Asmussen? 2 Asmussen, Somich. Publisher. Give me the maiden. That's right. Again, it's weird that Steve Byk and I see so much alike here, but we just love Steve Asmussen because why? He just gives out winners, and we like that. So anyway, publisher for me here for the 3rd pick, 2nd pick for me, 3rd pick overall. Look, I look at this horse and I say, do I think he has a chance to win this race? No, I absolutely do not. He's not going to break his maiden on Kentucky Derby Day. That would be shocking. But what does this horse do? He sits at the back, he waits for the pace to melt down, and he passes tired horses. That's a winning formula for the Superfecta, in my opinion. 3rd, 4th, I don't think you leave this horse off because he's proven he can do it. Has he proven he can win? No. But does he get 2nd and 3rd in big races? Yes, he absolutely does. So give me Publisher at number 3 to pick up the pieces late.
Yeah, I would be surprised. I don't like the Asmussen horses as much as you do, but again, 30-1 and a horse that you're trying to slot into that 3rd or 4th spot, I don't disagree with at all. For me here, I get 2 picks on the turnaround. 4th pick overall, give me the Madacat Road, the Bob Baffert with the best chance to win the Derby here, 40-1 on the board. Madacat Road doesn't need the lead. And we've seen him run well in multiple spots, not be able to get the win, but be able to finish in that top 3, top 4 spot. That's what we're looking for in a Superfecta here. A horse that's not going to stop, that's a big price, that can hit the board. I think that's what Madacat Road is. And then I get 2 picks, so I'll take Final Gambit, who unfortunately has become the wise guy horse somehow in this whole thing. 25-1 right now on the board. This is a Brad Cox trainee that won the Jeff Ruby Stakes over at Turfway Park last time. You mentioned how horses that run well on turf, run well on synthetic, do well over this dirt track at Churchill. Well, guess what? That's exactly what we saw from Final Gambit last time out. He came flying on the outside to be able to stamp his ticket to this Kentucky Derby. Another closer here that I think can make some noise, especially with a hotter pace, and run up into that 3rd or 4th spot. I don't think Final Gambit wins, but I do think Final Gambit has a pretty good shot at hitting the board. So for me, Grande first pick 15-1, Madacat Road pick number 4, my 2nd pick 40-1, and Final Gambit pick number 5, 25-1 for me. Aaron Halterman, close us out. You can't pick an Asmussen. You already took both of them. Is there anything left for you here?
Yeah, it's getting a little bit slim now. There's no doubt about it. Madacat Road, you just can't get off that horse. All right, so last pick here. Oh, man. Okay, you like Final Gambit. Give me Flying Mohawk, the horse that was behind Final Gambit last time out. You talked about another horse with turf on the resume and a horse that I think will kind of just be what the theme of this whole kind of draft has been. Drop back, try to make one run. I kind of like Flying Mohawk as a horse in general. Now, do I really love him for the Derby? No, not really. But it's a 3rd pick in a Superfecta draft where we got to draft horses over 20-1. I think he's kind of the last one that kind of makes sense that I had circled for this draft. Like I said, drop back, hope you get lucky, hope you get a decent enough trip, and just hope you can close well enough to kind of pass those tired horses. So yeah, give me Flying Mohawk, a horse that I think is getting better. And I think no matter what he does on Derby Day, kind of keep an eye out for this horse. He's a pretty decent horse.
Yeah, Flying Mohawk 66-1 on the board. They're never going to talk you off a 66-1 shot. Now, Aaron, we've got some big news here. So we've got to at least cover the breaking news around VSiN at the track. We are going to be live on Kentucky Derby Saturday, 4 o'clock Eastern to 7 o'clock Eastern over on Mad Dog Sports Radio, as well as on the Sirius XM channel 158 for the VSiN channel as well. So you'll be able to catch us on the Kentucky Derby Saturday leading up to the Kentucky Derby. It's going to be an absolute blast. Can't wait to be on both of those channels. You can catch us on YouTube TV as well. So make sure you stay with us here on Kentucky Derby Saturday, 4 to 7 Eastern. And next week, we're going to have another guest, the Bear, Chris Felica, going to join us as well. He was on Money Moves this week, talked a little bit about his Kentucky Derby betting strategies. We'll cover that next week with him live. But I'm excited to have Chris on the show as well. A lot going on here for VSiN at the track, Aaron.
It's awesome. Yeah, great guest. 2 weeks in a row, we're getting great guests. That is awesome. And yeah, could not be more excited and thankful to be on Kentucky Derby Day. That is going to be a blast.
Thank you for joining us, everybody out there. No matter how you caught us, we really appreciate it. This is VSiN at the track, road to the Kentucky Derby.